Howdy and welcome back to the RedAss Podcast, Episode 7. This is Rob White, class of 2014.
And this is Roy May, Fighting Texas Aggie, class of 2015.
All right, and we are finally back, and I hope everybody's having a great Memorial Day weekend.
A lot of people have already kicked it off.
Yeah, mine in particular, because I only work Sunday to Thursday, so I'm off today and ready to rock and roll. Hopefully have a good weekend.
Yeah. We're actually taking a trip out west of San Antonio. I've got a little golf tourney, little golf scramble we're going to play and get out of the house and pray that the weather holds up. I know we're gonna coming back Sunday night and we're gonna grill and everything. So Sunday night I may have to go in emergency build a gazebo mode over my grill. I don't know.
Yeah, with the weather coming in this weekend, it's supposed to be pretty nasty from what I'm hearing, especially on Memorial Day itself.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but, what are you going to do?
I normally put up, I've got this really big American flag. I normally put it on my roof, but when the weather's bad, I don't want to put it up there just because I got it a long time ago from a buddy of mine, and it was from they were building a neighborhood, and it was the model home, and they had these massive American and Texas flag, and he was out there helping build and everything. And once they finished, they just gave him the flags. So he took the Texas one, and I got the U.S. and it's large.
Yeah,
but I can't replace it. That flag's probably a $3,000 flag.
Yeah, no, those things don't go for cheap at all. Big flags.
So I don't want it to get too faded. So when the weather stinks, unfortunately, I don't put it up.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I'm definitely looking forward myself. I think me and a couple of buddies might go down to Green this weekend because the rivers are open, so we might go do a little floating tomorrow, which will be nice. We were originally supposed to play a show this weekend, but that did fall through. But that happens. It's first weekend back. They're still trying to figure out logistics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's man, dude, floating the river. It's like the original social distancing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, we're all set up from the last time we went. So I've got all my gear. I got my river shoes, got my beer, got everything else. So, I honestly think that should be a pretty fun little trip.
And this is the weekend of plan trips, right?
yeah.
Memorial Day, school is over. This always really marks the beginning of summer. I remember Memorial Days when the pools, the neighborhood pools open, and so I wanted to talk a little bit. We're going to talk about Memorial Day, but I want to talk a little bit about trips, man. The end of school means vacations and trips, and so and I also just watched Lampoon Vacation the other day, so
that was always good.
Yeah. So did y'all have a summer trip y'all took, or it's officially the summer, or a big family trip in the summers y'all used to take? Because I know a lot of families kind of have a tradition they do.
Right. So I actually really benefited from the fact that my family actually really didn't have a lot in the ways of a set date to actually go travel. Typically, what we would do if we were traveling, as opposed to what I was saying, as opposed to a traditional travel date where we would just go do one thing every year. I was pretty blessed that my family actually had a pretty good set schedule of doing something different every year, which was nice. So we always made it a point to go out and, I think we've made some West Coast trips, going out to, I think we did Disneyland whenever we were younger. I think one year we did kind of a historical trip, so we went kind of the northern corner of New Mexico with Mesa Verde and all that other fun stuff up there, Grand Canyon. So that was pretty cool. But in particular, when we got into college, I think probably one of my favorite trips, we started getting a little more bold with the trips, so we finally made it up to Alaska. And we did that as a cruise, and we made it all the way down. We did Hawaii a couple times. So, but typically right around that beginning of the year, we tend to have a fun trip, whether it's mountainous or beachy. My mom prefers beachy, so we end up doing that quite a bit.
Well.
And we scuba dive quite a bit. So, we enjoy doing that. It's a good time.
Yeah, we kind of marking the beginning of the summer was always Yeah, well, Memorial Day weekend, obviously my dad being a veteran, and
Right.
we did the stuff at home and everything. You know, the trips to Splashtown growing up, this
Right.
water park outside of, trips to Splashtown. But we never went on a ton of vacation. Summertime was really a time for us to go see. My two late grandmothers. One lived in Gilmer, one lived in Sherman, and
Mhm.
growing up, the speed limits aren't what they were, or they weren't what they are now.
Mhm.
And so it was like 4.5, 5 hours at Gilmer. Sherman's a solid hour and a half north of Dallas back then.
Right.
But we always spent some time with my grandparents. But when it comes to like vacations and trips, and we'd always go to either the lake or the beach every summer. That was
Right.
one thing we did. But the one family trip I will always remember, and oddly enough, it wasn't a summer. It was actually a spring break trip, but it kind of fits into that whole pack the family into the car and drive across country kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my dad, so he did 30 active. He did 11. He did 30 years of service, retired. He did 11 active and 19 reserve.
Mhm.
And so I grew up. My dad was still in the reserves, and Desert Storm popped off, and my dad got called to active duty.
Right.
And he got stationed at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa with Special Operations Command. It's called SOCOM, and it was crazy. He had an office like 2 or 3 doors down from Schwarzkopf's office. Like SOCOM was, that's all the Special Operations guys, SF Ranger, all that stuff falls under, Delta, all that stuff falls under SOCOM. And but being where he was in his career and his age, it's not like they're going to send him over to be a platoon leader. Not to mention his rank, far out. He got a platoon leading in Vietnam, but
Mhm.
but so he filled kind of the more of an admin type role. And dude, it was in Tampa, like it was in
Right.
Tampa, St. Pete. So we all packed into the car for spring break, and drove from Spring to Tampa in my mom's, oh gosh, what was it, a Grand Marquis. It was white and it had like the blue fake leather. It was just one of the classic.
Right.
Everybody's got their remember that family car.
Yeah.
Um, but so myself and my two sisters, I remember this vividly. We're in the garage getting ready to leave, and my two sisters are in the back seat and I'm in the front seat, and we just rambunctious. It was just being kids. We're getting ready to go somewhere we've never been,
Right.
and I think everybody understood that we were about to be packed into a car for 15 hours together.
Right.
And we, I remember the little basketball goals you used to put on your door in your room.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and remember how you get them that were also like the suction cup ones?
Mhm.
So I grabbed one of those for the trip and I put it on the front windshield so my sisters could shoot over my head. And we started that in the car. Like she had just turned. In fact, I don't even know if she turned the car on, but we get in the car and we're just being rambunctious and being idiots. We're in the garage and my mom turns around and screams, "If you don't shut up, I will turn this car around and we just won't go." And first of all, I don't know how you're going to turn it around. We haven't gone anywhere.
Right.
But the concept of we just won't go to visit your father who you haven't seen, in Tampa. But it was like the classic, I'll turn this car around,
Yeah.
But I remember that just clear as day. But the trip was, it was a long trip. You know what? Another trip, a summer trip I remember is I went to my sister's commencement at West Point.
Okay.
And to get my sister's car home, my parents flew up and back. We all flew up there, and then we drove back so myself and my two sisters drove back from West Point to Texas.
Mhm.
And we kind of took a little bit of the scenic route. That was the first time I'd truly seen Kentucky's bluegrass. Like, I remember that. That was the first time I'd ever been to the Tomb in Arlington.
Mhm.
I remember doing that. We went to Atlanta, and so we had this fun trip. And my sisters, so I'm the youngest of three. We're 4 and 6 years apart in school, 5 and 7 in age, and because I made the cutoff for to be in my class year by like a couple weeks.
Right.
But so and man, just like siblings, we didn't necessarily get along real well, and it was 2-on-1, 2 girls against the baby boy, but I remember that trip. We just had such a great time, and it was we really all got along. And it was weird because we really all got along for an entire drive from West Point, New York to Texas. But that's probably, those two are my most memorable like family trips. I see pictures and I remember some stuff like going down to Galveston and getting my first sunburn,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But um, yeah, those were like the two big family trips I always remember. And now that stuff's opening up, people can go more places now. You have parks and everything.
Yeah, and I will say there was one spot that we always would go in the summer, and this more or less kind of marked our beginning and end. Now that it's coming back to mind, it wasn't a long trip. It was about 2 hours away, but we would go up to Ruidoso, New Mexico, up there in the mountains, and they have a racetrack, casino. It's always a little bit cooler up there, but they had racetracks and restaurants, and it's fantastic. It's a great spot to visit. But the best part, there was always thunderstorms overnight, and the temperature was always about anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees lower than it was down where we're used to being. So that was a nice little reprieve during the summer to get away from the heat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and we all had sports and stuff. The
Yeah,
base, summer meant baseball for me. Little
same
leagues,
here.
and then once I got into middle school and high school, it's you start up at two a days, and mowing in the 105-degree heat in Texas, and the humidity along with it. And it's the summer is there's so many great memories about summer, and I'm a firm believer in this when it comes to would you rather be hot and sweaty or would you rather be cold? And here's the deal: hot and sweaty is uncomfortable. It's miserable. It's uncomfortable. I get it. Cold is painful, dude. Like once my fingers get numb, it hurts. Like it's painful.
I will make an argument to that.
I will argue all day.
I will
all
argue
day
this.
on this.
I can keep on putting layers. Layers can keep getting thrown on.
Yeah, but at some point they don't do anything. Once you can't keep your body warm, another layer actually is detrimental to you getting warm.
Let me get to my point. You can keep on putting layers. Yeah, the layers can keep going on, but I can only strip down so far before it becomes indecent exposure. And nobody wants to see that.
Well, no, but dude, as long as you're drinking water, like you can live through the heat. You'll live through it, man. Like
Yeah.
I get like there's heat exhaustion, but dude, being hot and sweaty, it is what it is. But like when you walk outside, and I know people not from like the Houston area or the coastal region, they always say they get off the plane and the humidity hits them in the face.
Oh yeah.
But dude, cold is pain. Like my toes and fingers have never gotten numb in the summer.
Mm.
Ever. Like I've never had to think, man, if I stay outside too long without a mask on, will my nose fall off?
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, just with my history, being from the desert, I'm used to it being hot. But that's 100.
Cold.
I mean, it's 110-degree heat. But
here comes that. It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. I mean, it's really not bad. I mean, truly. I mean, it feels hot, and you just are used to just everything around you being hot, but it's tolerable, and the temperature will drop at night. Down here, there's no such thing. It is in the 80s by the time the sun goes down, and it stays there. That is not natural. That's incorrect. I hate that.
Big baby.
I'm not used to this humidity, man. I will say I've acclimated to it because now when I go back home to New Mexico, the change in altitude and the dry air actually causes me to get nosebleeds like after a few days while I'm there. Oh. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I can deal with just about anything. The most miserable condition in life to me is cold and rainy, like truly cold. And dude, once you're chilled to the bone, it takes hours to warm back up. Cooling down just requires a little bit of shade and a breeze.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm built like a beluga whale, so cold and wet doesn't really bother me much.
Well, I mean, granted, I get it. I grew up in it, but everybody's like, I love people always, hey, dude, we're going snow skiing.
Yeah.
No, y'all are. I'll go to the resort and I'll sit inside by the fire and drink and watch it.
Someone break out a guitar and give me the hot cocoa.
Yeah, let's go have some fun in the snow. Like that's not a sentence in my world. Yeah, it is when we get snow here, because in another 25 years, when we get enough snow to stick here in College Station, I'll be like, hey, I'll go build a snowman,
Right.
and then I'll be content for a couple more decades. I'm good, man. And I get like, I got to have my seasons, and dude, I've been on the East Coast, Northeast in the fall, and it's beautiful.
Hmm.
I've also been in the Northeast, and I've been in Chicago in February, and there's nothing beautiful about that, and there's nothing enjoyable about that.
No, that's a raw, miserable cold. Forget
It
that.
is. It's just it's cold. It's miserable. The sun doesn't shine. Like there are literal medical conditions, like people that don't get enough sun.
Hmm.
The only medical condition for getting too much sun isn't psychological. It's skin cancer.
Right.
You sunburn skin. Like nobody gets depressed because it's sunny outside.
Right.
You know, unless you're the kid that's grounded, and that's your own damn fault, anyways. But
Right. Come
but
on,
like
listen to your
nobody.
parents, kids.
Oh, man, it's just too nice outside. It's dumb. Hell no, man. Man, when are we ever going to see the sun? Is the snow going to melt? I'm so tired of slipping
Yeah.
on black ice and busting my ass. I, I mean, not that that's happened to me like 10 times,
Yeah.
but yeah. So, dude, I'm a heat guy, man.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm used to about 330 days of sun a year back home. I mean, I will say this has probably been the best balance for me moving back down here to College Station because I do get plenty of rain and it
Yeah,
can get cooled off and there is plenty of sun. It's just a nice balanced environment and that's why I don't mind it here.
it's just a much longer, more humid summer for you.
Accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what I grew up with. So
Sure.
you know,
Is what it
but
is.
yeah, I'm used to it. I think that's where it probably started. I was just talking about this the other day. I drink water all day. I wake up and I don't really drink coffee. I drink water all day.
Mhm.
I might have even talked about this on podcast 4. Being out and doing those 2 days in that Texas heat in August, um, like you have to drink water. You don't think
Oh,
about
yeah.
not drinking water. And then in the military, you have like forced hydration stuff sometimes in training, or at least they used to. But I mean, like in the army, you don't ever want to become a heat casualty, because once you're a heat casualty, you are always labeled as one. You
Right.
have to have a special tag along with your dog tags. Because once you're a heat casualty, you're more prone to become a heat casualty again.
Hmm.
And so, man, like drinking water, staying hydrated. Like I'll sweat all day. Hey, that's fine with me. Be a little hot, sweaty, and gross. But
So, speaking of trips, and I'll just kind of roll back to that, but yeah, this kind of blends in with our heat conversation. So I guess it was my sophomore year of high school. My marching band that I was in got invited to go perform down at Disney World in Orlando. Now, we're dressed up, in our standard uniforms. But what was really interesting about it was we came in, and we had those old '80s style uniforms. They had the big blue jackets, the white pants. We had white shoes. Everything really popped on those things, and they were big, thick wool uniforms. And we're wearing these things in the middle of the summer in Orlando, and we were marching for 3 miles.
ugh.
That right there is my personal hell. It was awful, but it wasn't as bad as it was for the poor band that was from Texas that came down. I don't remember where they were from, but we were wearing blue with white pants. Those poor suckers were wearing all black head to toe and hats, gloves, everything. I'm like, y'all are dumb as hell. They had like 4 people pass out.
No
I'm
thanks.
shocked it was only 4.
Yeah, that reminds me of being in the old guard. Yeah, that was
Ugh.
one thing where in July and August on that plaza with the sun coming down and then radiating back up from the marble.
Oh, I bet.
And the blues in the army, the old guard gets 100% wool blues.
Oof.
So, oh yeah, they've changed sunglasses. We wore the aviators. They have like some nifty new Oakleys now they get, but
Which is
like
nice.
you're out there and you're just scorched, man. You're sweating through your blouse. You're sweating through like the canvas belt, your hat, and in the bottom of the aviators, you'd get like it because when you get your shades, you actually bend them to wrap, kind of form fit your head,
Right.
and you'd get like the little fish tanks in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those days, like I would go back to back, which is every other walk for the entirety of the cemetery open. So I do 11 walks every work day for like 4 months before I do 3 walks in a work set in the winter. Nope.
Right.
I'll
That's
sweat
just
all.
gross.
I'll sweat all day, man. Yeah. Well, and we used to talk about people falling out. Man, anytime you have parades and people just standing there for too long, you don't even need heat for people to fall out.
Right.
You know, people lock their knees and go down. But there were days, and you always look for the privates and the new people, or maybe like some of the support personnel that don't go out and do events on a daily basis. They'd get out there and just thunk, thunk, and it just sounds like a sack of potatoes and bayonets going down. It's hilarious.
Oh boy.
Like, sorry for them, but we had I'll never. In fact, speaking of passing out, so there was a place, well, there still is, on Fort Myer where the old guard is. It's called Conmee Hall. Everybody calls it Sea Hall, and it's where you can do ceremonies in inclement weather. It's it's indoors,
right?
And it was air conditioned, but it was still kind of warm. The problem was it was kind of a stale air, so it didn't have to be really hot for it to still be kind of miserable. And there was a lieutenant there, and like if you're enlisted and you're there and you go down, you have to go through retraining and all this other stuff. There was a lieutenant at the front of formation, and this dude just straight buckles and forward like a falling tree, goes face first into this floor.
Oh boy!
And it's called homicide. Like it's tough to explain. There's a little bit of wiggle room to put punctures in it, so it's not quite concrete. But he just thunk, and I mean, you don't move. There's some people in the back that are there to come around, and they went around and picked, and when they got him up and got him to the back, there was a little pile of a little pool of blood right there and a tooth. Jeez. He knocked out one of his teeth going face first into the floor.
Good Lord.
And that was the last time any of us saw him, because like as an officer, if you fall out in the old guard, you're immediately reassigned. Like you're done.
Wow.
And then we had the best one out on Summerall Field, the outdoors. And change of command ceremonies are nightmares. General officer retirements are even worse, because it's a whole huge ceremony. Like everything, you have everybody goes out there, the fife and drum corps troops the line, or the army band troops the line, and you got to give him his plaques and his awards and this and that. But then this is like their last hurrah, and they get up to give a speech. And man, there's a lot of times they'll get up there and they're really cool about it. Change of commands, a lot of, especially if it's the old guard commander, like regimental commander, who'll get up there and they'll say, I can't remember what it is, like policy procedures remain in effect, pass and review, and that's it. Like it literally takes 7 seconds, and you'll hear everybody like rattle their rifles a little bit. You hear all the bayonets kind of rattling out there, and that's every time you get past and review, because sometimes it's to wake people up, because you'll have dudes straight up zoned out and sleeping on the marks. But man, the general officer retirements, this guy will get up there and be like, I remember in the 3rd grade I had a little Jack Russell Terrier, and you're like, oh,
dear
shit.
Christ.
Oh, I'm going to die on Summerall Field. Very well. Well, you know what? At least the regiment's formed. We can just go straight to Arlington. Just throw me on the caisson and put me in the ground. But so at the time I was in Continental Color Guard, and the colors are dead center of all the formations. Right. So we're literally lined up right behind the regimental staff, and we're watching. And I think it was the XO, and we're sitting there watching. And you're far enough back, you can have tiny little conversations with each other. Nobody hears it. And he starts to go a little bit. And one of the guys notices, like, dude, check out the XO. And so for the next maybe 5-10 minutes, we're watching this guy like just fighting the monkey. Like he's got the monkey on his back, it's pulling down to the ground, and he sway one way and he kind of straighten back up, and then he kind of sway forward, and so we're in the back going, damn, and then finally he starts going forward. He steps forward, stands straight back up, and then just like pivots and just falls straight on his back.
Oh boy. And
he's really close to the crowd. So, and you have this adjutant from way over on the side of Summerall Field that's got to come replace him. But in the meantime, our regimental commander, Colonel Laufenberg, greatest dude on the planet. I would follow this guy anywhere. He ceremoniously goes to attention in the middle of this ceremony because he's got to do something. He, sheaths his saber, ceremonially walks around, takes this ceremonial knee next to this guy like he's laying a wreath, and starts slapping him in the face.
Oh boy.
Like, and we can hear it. It's like smack, smack. Like trying to get this dude. It's so great. And so, and so they call the reserve kind of, you have reserves in the bag just in case people fall out.
Mhm.
So here comes two staff officer, a staff NCO and a staff officer. The staff officer is humping out to get it in place and take his place in formation. The staff NCO comes out, grabs homeboy by the belt, and just drags him across Summerall Field. It was the funniest crap I'd ever seen. I feel like there was a directive that the Colonel Offberg was like, dude, if any of you staff officers go down, I'm gonna make an example of you,
Right.
because they just straight dragged this dude by his belt. It was hilarious. But
Good Lord.
yay, summertime and heat, yay.
Summertime and heat. Here we are.
But but the biggest thing, I wanted to make sure we got this done, especially since everybody's going on vacations this weekend. And it's been a busy week, but I wanted to get this in because this is kind of like our Memorial Day weekend podcast, right?
Right.
And the three big days are Memorial Day, Veterans Day, July 4th, right? Those are the three big patriotic holidays. And
Exactly.
now, to a lesser extent, and unfortunately, September 11th is kind of a day of remembrance as well.
Mhm.
But I want to talk a little bit about Memorial Day, and I'm going to preface this with one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's the thank you for your service thing. But that's not my pet peeve. My pet peeve is the veterans that get all pearl clutching offended. They're like, "Hey, you don't thank me for my service.
Yeah,
This is
thank me for
Memorial
my
Day."
service. As
Yeah,
we like to call the bro vets, right?
Yeah, yes, they are absolutely bro code vets. They're still wearing like 511 tactical pants, working, in their regular normal jobs now.
We may know a couple like that.
Yeah, you just have like from a veteran's perspective or even soldier's perspective, just be grateful that you have a grateful nation.
Right.
Like, they're thanking you, and whether they feel obligated or not, they still say it, because there's some people that refuse to feel that obligation, and that's what they think, and they don't like soldiers, and they don't like the troops, and they don't like the military, and that's fine too, because that's why you fight, is so Americans can make those decisions on their own.
Exactly.
Which is one of the most fascinating things to me is that the world we live in right now, where if we don't share the same opinions, then we can't even communicate or talk. That's fascinating to me, because there's no way to ever get through problems and address needs without talking to someone that you disagree with.
Absolutely. That's half of arguments on the planet right now. Just it needs to happen.
Yeah,
you need to be able to talk.
If we were all on the same page, we'd be a communist country.
It'd be boring as hell.
And not to mention, like, there'd still be a lot of people that wouldn't like that page. They just would get shot if they said something about it.
Exactly.
So, but anyways, yeah, like, dude, thank you for your service. Remember, and if you support the troops, I don't care. And the guys that get all boo-boo lipped about it drive me batty.
Mm-hmm.
But so Memorial Day, this is the weekend where we remember all those who have given their life in service. All the fallen brothers and sisters in arms. And this is it's an important weekend. Yeah, it's for so many reasons. Like we said, man, this is the opening of summer. It really truly marks, like we were talking about earlier. School's out for summer. Right. This is getting your hot rod and peel out of the parking lot, because your teachers will forget about it by September when you come back. This is the pool's open. Get outside, grill with your families, because one of the biggest things is knowing the guys that I know that have paid the ultimate made the ultimate sacrifice, paid the highest price possible. Mm. Dude, they'd want you to go out and be with your family on Memorial Day and remember those who made that sacrifice. And this shouldn't be an incredibly somber day or weekend. And I get it, man. I've got some veterans where I've got some buddies that this is a tough weekend. It's really a tough weekend, and I get that. And I'm there for those dudes, and we always talk on this weekend. And but they would still tell you the same. Like, even though they're having a hard time with it, they're not going to be the ones that are going to frown on their neighbors, having parties and having a huge barbecue. Well, with whatever directives you're allowed to do, but underneath COVID guidelines. But in these uncertain times.
Oh my God! Stop.
But the sacrifices made and Memorial Day weekend is for the ultimate sacrifice, is so that we can enjoy these freedoms and that we can do these things.
Yeah.
And man, there's nothing worse than losing a buddy. It just period. It's like loss of life always stings somebody,
Hmm.
and there's you, these guys and girls are going out and they're laying it on the line, and sometimes they come back with stories. Sometimes they come back missing some limbs, and sometimes they come back in a box, and it's just the harsh reality of the job, like the profession that they chose. And so that sacrifice for this weekend is one where I'll watch the reading of the names, and I'll make sure I reach out to my buddies, and my buddies know that they can always reach out to me, because some Memorial Days are harder than others for some people. I've got buddies that there's certain weekends that it's the anniversary of when their buddy got blown up, and it's just a random weekend in March or November. But it's a remember every day. But it's also some people like to call it, instead of a funeral, it's a celebration of life, right?
Right.
Like Memorial Day is a celebration of those lives and a celebration of that sacrifice, which is and people can argue this all they want, but as far as I'm concerned, it is one of the most noble things to truly die for what you believe in. And not to be a martyr or just go out, but to go fight for what you believe in. And if that means that the ultimate price of those actions is your life, it's something that you've come to terms with, but you still believe in what you do, and you believe in your brothers to your left and the right, and that's why you do it.
Yeah, and for as young of a nation as we are here in the United States, I mean, we have really definitely grown in our growth for our love for our country and our love for our veterans as well as those that have passed. And it hasn't always been the case like that. I mean, you go back to Vietnam in particular, you did have a large counterculture group that really felt the need to shame those who went to fight, even though the majority of them that went to fight maybe necessarily that wasn't something they wanted to do. You know, I mean, they had draft and whatnot going on there.
Well, yeah, just because somebody didn't dodge the draft didn't mean that they wanted to be in Vietnam.
No, exactly.
There were people that were probably vehemently against the war, but they still understood their civic duty.
Well, and not to mention, there was a lot of people in that group that felt the need that this was, my dad fought World War II, his dad fought World War One. This is my war, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
there is that mindset among folks that this is my war and it's my duty to go and serve for my country, and it's a national thing, it's a family thing, and it's a really special thing for you to have that connection with your country, your family, and having pride in that, and feeling the need to go out and make that sacrifice if need be. That's something special and something that I will always appreciate, because I didn't necessarily feel the call to go do that, and I appreciate every single one of them that does it, and I will never shame anybody who feels the need to go out and defend our freedoms ever.
Yeah, that the Vietnam time is just such a fascinating period, just
It
because
is.
of it was a clash of uh, you know the Vietnam War, and really a huge cultural shift in general in the country, and how those ended up meshing. So it was weird, because you also had the anti-war movement that had veterans involved in it, and you see some of that today because this has become such a generational war.
Hmm.
This really is kind of quote unquote our generation's war, and I think you saw. Patriotism comes in waves in this country. It cycles.
Right.
I think obviously around time of war, obviously the patriotism and the country coming together. But as things draw out, you start to see fatigue, and it's like patriotic fatigue.
Hmm.
And I think that's what we saw in Vietnam, because initially our involvement in Vietnam having to do with really just helping the South Vietnamese, but then it just extended, and more of America's children were going to Vietnam, and so many of them were coming back, and the way
Right.
and just the way the culture of the country was shifting and changing, not just completely a part of the war, just how it was changing.
Right.
And then you have this war that seems like, I mean, like I said, I mean, the dates on the Vietnam unknown crypt are 58 to 75. that's an incredible length of time to be involved with something. I mean, look at World War One, 1917 to 1918, World War Two, 41 to 45. At least our involvement in it.
Right.
And then you have Vietnam, 58 to 75. The Korean War, the forgotten war, 50 to 53. There was a lot of disagreement about the Korean War and our involvement in it, but it was a 3-year thing.
Yep.
And there was support for veterans. You didn't see quite the same clash, as you saw in the '60s, because a lot of Korean War vets were the World War II guys who literally just saved the world. It's
Right.
it's like the World War I and World War II guys. It's like back to back world champs.
Yeah. And let's not even mention the fact you look at Vietnam, probably the biggest stickler with it was that we didn't see territorial gains. It was never about that. It was
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It was more body count.
Yeah, we could do a whole thing on the Vietnam War.
Oh, sure.
It was World War I and World War II, very specific objectives.
Right.
And everybody knew them. We had a bad guy that we were going to go in and beat up and kick out, right?
Right.
And that's where you see with the Vietnam War, it was assisting a people, and it wasn't the way the country saw it. There wasn't a direct specific threat to us, or a global threat, but we were getting involved in it. And what you see now with OIF and OEF, Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, which is the Afghanistan side of it,
right?
Dude, it's just, man, it's so long. This is a generational war. You're talking about the length of time that Vietnam went on, and so you see this patriotic fatigue, and the country just kind of. It's not that people are unpatriotic; they just. You walk
they
down
lose
the street,
interest.
You don't see as many American flags, flying from people's, houses, and then 9/11 occurs, and everybody is the biggest patriot in the world because unfortunately it takes something bad like that to really truly galvanize a country. I mean, look at World War II. We were staying as far away from it as possible, and then it hit home, and that was it. So. And you see that waning, of support, and it's kind of getting back to that stuff. It's one of those, I've said it before. September 11th, in and of itself, is just such a galvanizing, very specific day. But now we're 19 years, past.
Crazy to think about, isn't it?
And you see just kind of how the shift, how it kind of all fades away a little bit, and a little bit less. And it's one of those charges to, and this, I'll ring this bell on September 11th. I'll ring it on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, July 4th. Live your life like it's September 12th, when there was just such a need and hope and desire to be helpful to others, and what can I do and what can we do? And you've got this task force from Texas that goes to New York, and you got task force from the West Coast coming in to help, and everybody. It was the feeling of community and nation and togetherness, and there was everybody. You probably couldn't find an American flag to mount in front of your house, and it's that pride of country, and what you see as it goes along is that fatigue that they get is because of all the outside stuff that goes on, and all the political arguments and this and that, and it's weird because for decades and decades, so many countries in the world have wanted to do nothing but poke holes in what is the might of America, if that's kind of how you want to phrase it.
Right.
But it's weird because now you have so many Americans trying to poke holes in that too. And like, bro, we have so many problems and so many things we need to deal with. Like, we got to work together, and that's where it kind of circles back to Memorial Days. We got to be willing to sacrifice. And I'm not saying you got to go out and give your life, in a protest for tax reform or something. But it's that willingness to realize, the extent of sacrifice you're willing to make your words no longer hollow. Mm-hmm. And that's really what Memorial Day shows us is, and the whole, well, anybody can be in the military, you blah, 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 blah. And there's a ton of data that I can show you that states that not everybody can be in the military. Right. You'd be really surprised. but they're making a decision, and for whatever reasons, people join it because there's college money. I wanted a trade or a skill. Just patriotic reason. I wanted to. I wanted to serve my country. There's a ton of reasons and motivations behind people joining the military. They have a student loan repayment program.
Right.
So there's a ton of reasons. But it gets down to the point where once you've made the decision, that's your lifestyle and that's your profession, and you understand that there are going to be sacrifices. A lot of them personal, not being able to see your family as much. Some of them professional. Some people, we get they have an AMED program. It's literally recruiting doctors to the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that are already doctors, they bring them to the Army. Obviously, they just make Army pay, but each specialty also gets an annual bonus in an attempt to somewhat bridge that income gap. Right. And there are doctors and there's docs out there, and really the whole spectrum of our medical field. The Army has a veterinary corps, they have a nurses corps. These people are making professional sacrifices to spend some time in the Army, because no matter what extra bonus you get every year for what you do, like, it ain't gonna add up to what you make in the private sector.
No, it just won't.
So it's this is a weekend to to honor the sacrifices of those who literally went out, ultimate sacrifice, and unfortunately have their names carved in stone somewhere now. But it's a lot of people just see lists and names and numbers, and the one thing you always have to remember, it's just like when you go to if you've been to the wall, the Vietnam Wall, or you've been to Ground Zero, and you see those names. Maybe you recognize a name or this and that, but to each one of those names, there's a family and there's friends, and they're their Army buddies, and they're their Marine Corps buddies, and they miss them, and they were impactful in their lives. And I've got buddies that the world is a lesser place because they're gone, but what they chose to do and how they chose to do it is absolutely the highest honor, and that's to make the ultimate sacrifice for the betterment of really society, like your country.
Mm-hmm.
Your country is your society. You do things and you contribute, and the idea is to all work together under this whole America thing that we've got going on for a couple hundred years. And then some are go the extra mile and make that sacrifice, and some of it willing, and some of it they're because their decisions putting them in that position. And that includes our first responders out there, law enforcement, firefighters. These are they're putting themselves in those positions, and it's because other people won't.
It's not easy at all to do what they do at all.
They answered the call. And that's really what this weekend's all about. So enjoy it. Like, they did that so we can continue to do this. That's really the idea behind Memorial Day. And I think it's just so important to clear the air about the bro vet stuff. So this is an important weekend for me. It always will be. Yeah. And I hope everybody has a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope you stay safe. Don't add your name to a list of deaths on Memorial Day weekend because you went out and did something stupid.
Right.
Don't drink and drive. Don't go do stupid stuff. Stay safe. Enjoy what little freedoms you have right now because of a pandemic.
Right.
But enjoy your ability to get with your family or friends and fire up the grill if you got to be under an umbrella or something. But or if you got money and you got one of those gazebo kind of outdoor kitchens thing, which is literally one of 3 goals in my life I'm working towards. But it just I hope that everybody has an awesome Memorial Day weekend. Take a quick moment to remember those who voluntarily put themselves into the line of fire, into that position, and ended up making that ultimate sacrifice so that we can continue to enjoy our freedoms. And it doesn't matter if you think differently. The idea behind the sacrifice is that you can think differently. It's so you can go out on Twitter or Facebook and just rant about anything, even if it's wildly offensive to someone. And even if it's directly offensive to like a soldier, you can come
Right.
up to my face and you can tell me you don't support the troops. You know what? And that's you're right. That's absolutely you're right, man. I mean, like if you come in front of me and like burn a flag in front of me, I'll go to jail. Uh,
Yeah, I
I know
believe
some
that.
lawyers, but it's man, the whole idea behind that sacrifice is so that we can live in a world or in a country where we can exercise those free thoughts and we can enjoy the company of others, and if we could all get on the same page and enjoy the company of others, though they may not think like we do, it's so that's really what it's about. I actually did a little bit of research before this podcast,
Oh,
and by a little bit of research, I mean I looked up one thing, but
okay.
well, there was an old quote, and I've been fortunate to be asked to speak like at schools and stuff for Memorial Day and Veterans Day on a handful of occasions, and I
Right.
love it. I love getting to go talk about. Well, I love to talk, obviously, but
Oh,
talk about service and why it's important to me and why I think it. Even if you don't serve, that profession, that should be important to you, or at least respect the decisions that people are making to do so. So Adlai Stevenson, who was ambassador to the UN in the early 60s, and I think he was like governor of Illinois or something like that.
mhm.
But and this really kind of goes into that whole, instead of riding the sine curve, of patriotism,
Right.
it's an everyday thing, and I think the more buy-in people have into the success of this country, I think the greater we will continue to become. It's got to be a concerted, together effort. And so the quote is, and this is again, it's Adlai Stevenson. He said, "Patriotism is not short, frenzied outbursts of emotion, but the tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime."
Mhm.
And if that doesn't really kind of sum it all up to me, it's and even if people serve for 3 or 4 years, they don't do a career. It's that dedication. They'll forever be veterans, and to go out and make sacrifices and make the ultimate sacrifices. It's the greatest gift that they never want to give, but are willing to give so to us for our freedom.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all. And we do appreciate all of you veterans who may be listening in on the podcast. And of
Yeah,
course,
you know what? Thank
yeah,
you for your service.
absolutely. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. And not to mention, we do what as Roy said, we will encourage you to make smart decisions, take care of yourselves this weekend, and of course, enjoy yourselves because that's what it's all about. Enjoy your freedoms. Before we do close out the podcast today, we did have our quick little announcement that t-shirt designs are ready to go. Shorts
Yes.
are ready to go. We finished those up and kicked them over to Roy, and he posted them out to Twitter, and it's a pretty good
Yeah,
response.
yeah, and I have been in touch with and we got our files got crossed, and I was having all kinds of technical issues last night, which for me is sometimes like, did you plug it in? But
Right.
but but yeah, so we're gonna get rolled out. I've been talking to some people about getting the online store up and running and kind of hosted. So we'll run the shorts out. We'll run the shirts that we put out for now. We got a bunch of slogans, so we're just gonna kind of throw some out at a time. We'll get the shirts up. We'll probably run some stickers out there as well, and probably like some trucker hats.
Yeah.
So, so I'll get that out, and trust me, as soon as it gets out, it'll come out from the RedAss podcast Twitter, and Rob and I will share it out as well, and we'll hashtag like idiots,
Oh, yeah.
so everybody sees it. And one last thing about this weekend, about staying safe and everything. This is kind of a little personal for me. Any veterans out there listening, or if you know veterans in your life and you know this is a tough weekend for them, or you just know them and all of a sudden this weekend they start to get distant or something, there's a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Mm.
All right, it's 1-800-273-8255. So it's 800-273-8255. As much as we love this weekend, it's kind of a weekend of fun and getting with family and trips and vacations. Remember those veterans and those first responders who, where this weekend could be a little tougher, and have that in your back pocket for them and pass it along. And we're all here to help our friends, whether you're a veteran or not. But if you can't do it, pass them on the info and get them some help. Make this. Let's not add to any numbers this weekend, for depression or PTSD or any of that stuff. So I don't want to end on a bad note, though. I just wanted to get that out. I think it's important.
Yeah.
I just want to say have a very, very happy and incredibly safe Memorial Day. I will be back Sunday night. So on Monday, rain or not, I will be on my back porch drinking a lot of beer.
Hey, that's the way to do it. I'll be working. Damn it.
I will be thinking of you while I'm drinking beer.
I appreciate that.
But I'll be doing it from the safety of my own home. So again,
yes, do it from the safety of your own home. Everybody stay dry out there too. It's supposed to be pretty wet this weekend in College Station.
Don't forget to bring your booties.
Yeah, you'll need those. Well, hey, once again, make sure you do follow us on Twitter if you don't already. Make sure you follow Roy May15 on Twitter, Robert_White14 on Twitter, along with our RedAss Podcast Twitter. Folks, this has been RedAss Podcast, Episode 7. Happy Memorial Day. Take care of yourselves. Giggle.
Yeah.